Here we are with Professor Christopher Lingle. Welcome to Argentina, Mr. Lingle.
Glad to be back.
You've been invited by the Liberty International World Conference to give a lecture. Can you give us a little bit of background as to who you are, where you've started?
I began at the University of Georgia with my doctorate. I went from there to a small university in Georgia called West Georgia College, became a university. Then I went to Auburn to teach as a professor. I always wanted to live outside the U.S., so I left the U.S., and my first teaching position outside the U.S. was in Italy. I went to Turkey, I went to Spain, I went to UK, I went to Germany, I went to Holland, and then around then I wound up in Luxembourg as a professor of economics. Then I went to South Africa, and then I went to Singapore. I got in trouble with the police and the government in Singapore. Then I've been around.
Do you consider yourself a classical liberal, perhaps a libertarian?
I'm a human. I try to not identify myself with a particular school of economics or philosophical ideology, because you have to defend it. Partly because especially liberty-oriented people tend to be like amoebas. They divide each other. They say, you're not pure, you're not. So I'm a human being. I have free market orientations. I have some instincts about the Austrian School of Economics. I was trained as a Chicago positivist. But now I try not to occupy a particular philosophy or ideology. I'm just a human being.
So what is your connection with Argentina's classical liberal movement?
Yeah. In 1996, I received a phone call from some people in Guatemala. I was watching the Atlanta Olympics, and I had no idea about these individuals or the Guatemala or the university. But Leonard Liggio, who was a very well-known American classical liberal, had recommended me. They said, we want someone that will enhance or expand the international exposure of the university. And Leonard said, Lingle will go anywhere. So I went to Guatemala in 1997. I met Juan Carlos Kaczynowski. I met Martin Krause. I met Gabriel Zanotti, and many gauchos. And then they invited me down here. And Guillermo Yates, Billy Yates, was the primary sort of financier or host or whatever. So I have a connection here that goes back probably more than 20 years. That was, for me, very expansive. I mean, I was exposed to the ESEADE, the people there from Alejandro Chalfuen. I have a lot of good connections here. So I was lucky. Somehow I got connected with the Latinos that had some libertarian ideas and Austrian ideas that it's wonderful to be back here.
Have you met Alberto Venegas Lynch Jr.?
Yes, many times. I met him in Guatemala, and I probably met him here. I'm sure I met him here at some time. I don't know Berti. If I met Berti, I don't recall meeting him. But like I say, most of my contacts are the older crowd, like Alberto. And so I'm happy to be back to see how he's being honored by an international organization that is committed to the ideas of human liberty. So it's really, I feel like I'm privileged to be back here because he is really an outstanding figure in the international libertarian movement. But he's being honored by the Liberty International. Of course, I knew I met Javier Milei, I don't know, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, at Liberty Fund or Mont Pelerin or some event. I vaguely remember him because he was not the main character, the main person at these events. I mean, Alberto Lynch or Juan Carlos Kachanowski were. But we met before. He won't remember me because I only remember him because he was presidente now. But again, I feel like there's really something in the air when it comes to Milei. Milei is a unique character. He has his idiosyncrasies, craziness. He has his personality, craziness. He has his charisma, craziness. But he's an anarcho-capitalist or libertarian or some mixture of the things that I generally believe in.
So, what is your take on how President Milei is performing so far?
Well, he's a politician. Politics is the art of the possible. Could he do more that I would like? Well, no, I don't think he could do more than what I would like. I think I know a little bit about Argentina and about the history of the politics here. I mean, there's a limit to what he can accomplish without losing political support. There were elections in September for the provinces. There's elections, national elections in October. These are very important. He has to accommodate and he has to compromise in a way that I, as an academic, I don't care. As an academic, I'm a purist. I can tell you what you must do. But first of all, he's human. Second of all, he's in a political framework. And, third, I trust his instincts. This is the interesting thing. What we see if we look back at Ronald Reagan, for example, or Margaret Thatcher, for example, their instincts were to reduce the state, to reduce political power. But the realities were Ronald Reagan introduced a protectionism for Harley Davidson. Promise you won't tell. That was one thing I would agree with because I'm a motorcycle enthusiast. But it's just what happens in politics. There are things you make compromises that are going to completely go against, or maybe go against the beliefs of an anarcho-capitalist or a free market person. But this is a reality. In order to form coalitions in politics, you have to be willing to make the compromises that I never have to make. I don't have to make them. I'm an academic. I can tell my students, no, this is the right path. This is what you must do. But Milei is in a peculiar situation, and he is a successful politician. I would not be, because I'm uncompromising. But I accept his compromises because I want to see Argentina become a more free place, a more for Argentina to be restored. I mean, look at these places. When I come here, I see this beautiful architecture. I don't understand how people accumulated the wealth to build these amazing palacios, but they did. And now you can barely build an apartment building. I mean, so I want to see Argentina restored to its appropriate place in the world, where it became a magnet for Europeans. It's, this is where I can go to advance my family status. I can be more comfortable. And at the moment, why would people come here? I mean, there's a lot of misery. Well, it's getting better, but it's not a magnet the way it used to be.
What do you make of the Argentine people having chosen Javier Milei as their president?
I was surprised. I was willing to bet money against his success. Because more than half of the population lives in a household that's a net recipient of largesse or payments from the state. How do you win? Well, because people began to see that they had no future. The Kirchneristas in particular, but I think the Peronista mentality of populism really condemned Argentine citizens to no future. And Milei, with his irreverent condemnation of the corruption, the politics as usual, somehow he was able to attract enough people that realized that he could deliver a more promising future, and that the old politicians, it was more the same. Argentina was becoming more and more indebted. It was the growth of the economy was disappearing. So, and price inflation was insupportable, and the black market exchange rates, all these, people were aware of these things. I was shocked. They voted, and we would say they rolled the dice. They said, the past is impossible. We don't know about the future, but let's go for it. And Milei was, again, he's a peculiar guy. I mean, he has the irreverence attracted the young people. And I think the older people said, look, we're going nowhere. Let's try something different. So here we are. And whatever missteps, whatever mistakes I would identify, I take a deep breath and I say, I'm willing to stand behind him.
As an academic, what do you think about Hans-Hermann Hoppe's criticism of Javier Milei, going as far as saying that he shouldn't call himself a libertarian?
I'm an academic. I live in a world where there's no skin in the game. You can be a purist. You can pretend that the only way is your way. And I think Hoppe is a bit like the socialists who say that wasn't real socialism. Well, what is that? I mean, what does that mean? It means that you don't understand that politics, especially in democracies, I mean, this is a somewhat vibrant democracy, despite the fraud and whatever that occurs in voting, that occurs everywhere in the world. You make compromises. Hoppe said he's not an anarcho-capitalist. Who is he to be the judge? I dislike this sort of tendency to exclude people because they're not pure enough. So I think Hoppe is right in one level, but he's completely out of touch with reality on another level. I'm willing to forgive Javier Milei for deviating from my own preferences, because I suspect that he does so, not because he disagrees with me, but because he realizes that if he does otherwise, he's going to lose. He'll lose support in the Congress, the provincial congresses or whatever, or in the national election. So he is a realist in a way, but he has an ideological instinct, and I think in the way that Reagan did. Ronald Reagan had an instinct that governments were the problem, not the solution. So he would always look for that guided him. He made mistakes, but I mean, well, he made mistakes. He deviated from what I would want him to do. But again, it was probably not because of his instincts, but because what was possible. And I think that's what Javier Milei has.